I was 3 months into my retirement, trying to be a good house husband. Turns out my old job was easier than cooking and cleaning. We still had our weekly cleaning lady, so my job was just to keep things tidy. Our kids had flown the coop long ago, so it wasn't much work. I took an early retirement from my job as VP at a large tech firm. The offer was too good to refuse. My wife Sandra and I, Jack Thompson by the way, spent countless hours discussing the offer. We decided it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I got $300,000 in cash and the same amount in my 401k. I also received 60 of my monthly salary for life and kept all my benefits, including insurance. We both thought this was very generous. So at 55, I found myself jobless for the first time since I was a teenager. I had several interests I wanted to explore. Writing was one, as I had always aspired to write but never had the time. I also wanted to learn woodworking, something I found fascinating but had no experience with. Sandra, my wife of 25 years, was the love of my life. She was 4 years younger than me at 51. She hadn't changed much since we first met in college. She was a sophomore and I was a senior. I fell for her at first sight and courted her for 6 months before she agreed to a date. The rest is history. We started dating exclusively and married after she graduated. Our 2 kids were born during the second and third years of our marriage, and then I got a vasectomy as we agreed 2 were enough. Sandra was a fantastic mother. She stayed home until the kids started school, then got a job in HR at a large regional hospital. She's a caring and unselfish person, and it shows when she meets new people. Our kids are now in professional jobs with families of their own. They don't live nearby, but are within a 3-hour drive. Sandra has worked at the hospital for 20 years and was promoted to Chief of Human Resources last year. It's a position with a lot of responsibility and high expectations. Before I go on, more about Sandra and me. Sandra is slender with blonde hair, standing at 56 with shapely legs and a sweet little butt. She's always had a high libido and is always ready for sex. Sandra knows how to turn me on. Sex with her is enjoyable because she's proactive and really gets involved. She's not the passive type. I know Sandra would be up for daily sex, but I can only handle it 2 or 3 times a week. My old body needs time to recover. In short, Sandra is always ready for a romp. As I mentioned, my name is Jack. I'm 55 and a little overweight. I stand 60 and I'm out of shape. One of my retirement goals is to lose weight and get back in shape. Working in a tech firm isn't conducive to a hard and lean body. I thought if I could lose weight and get in better shape, I would enjoy a better sex life. So in my 3rd month of retirement, I started going to the gym daily. I lost 20 pounds and 2 inches around my waist. I felt proud of myself. My muscle tone improved and the softness in several areas was replaced with muscle. My gym has a boxing ring and I hired an older trainer to teach me boxing. Boxing is brutal, but I began to accept being beaten and started landing a few blows myself. I thought Sandra would notice my changed body during sex, but she never said a word. Instead of lasting 5 minutes and taking a break, I could go a solid 10 minutes or more. I always got her off, but she never mentioned my improved body or performance. I didn't tell Sandra I was going to the gym, and she never noticed I was eating less and cutting back on alcohol. I just put it down to her new workload and stress from the job. She seemed preoccupied, and finally I asked why during dinner. I asked, "You seem totally distracted lately, like you're in a different zone and unaware of what's going on around you. What's wrong?" Sandra thought for a second and finally replied, "Nothing is wrong. I'm just overwhelmed by work. Would you like to share anything?" "No, I just need to work through it myself, but thanks for asking." So we left it at that. Sandra has to travel every quarter for an HR meeting. She works at a regional hospital with over 50 locations across the Midwest in larger cities. The HR chiefs meet to discuss strategies, staffing, and financial goals. The meetings run from Thursday afternoon through Saturday, with a return on Sunday. The usual venue is the Marriott Hotel in whatever city is chosen. This was Sandra's 5th time going. I know she looks forward to it, and because of her position, I encourage her. Networking with other HR chiefs is beneficial, and what works for one often works for all. We usually eat dinner at 6:30. even though Sandra officially finishes work at 5:00. She rarely comes home by then, so I schedule dinner for later. If she can't make it home in time for dinner, she usually texts. She texted the Wednesday before her Thursday departure, saying she'd be late as she needed to buy a few things for her trip. I said no problem. I'd put a plate in the microwave. She got home around 8:00 with several bags of clothes. Sandra always dresses professionally and maintains a fashionable wardrobe, so I wondered why she needed so many new things for her conference. I was on my computer that night while she packed. Later, we had wonderful sex and drifted off to sleep holding each other. I would miss her for the next few days, but I knew that when she returned on Sunday, we'd have mind-blowing sex. We both made breakfast the next morning, and as she got in her car, I had a tear in my eye. I could count on one hand the times Sandra and I had been apart during our marriage, and 4 of those times were for conferences. Sandra and I texted and called frequently while she was gone, and before I knew it, she was back. She seemed extra horny upon her return, and we had even better sex than normal. Sunday afternoon, she stayed in bed afterwards and napped while I got dinner together. We shared a nice bottle of wine during dinner, and then she went back to bed, using the exhaustion excuse again. I cleaned up and spent some time on the computer before joining her in bed. The next morning was a rush, with Sandra getting ready for work and making time for breakfast and coffee. Just before she left, she asked if I'd do her laundry, something she always did herself on Sunday afternoons. After returning home yesterday, she just collapsed from exhaustion. I picked up her laundry from the bedroom floor and bathroom. I always turn the pants inside out before putting them in the washing machine. Imagine my surprise when I pulled a pair of thongs out of one of the legs. I've asked Sandra for years to wear thongs, but she always refused, saying she didn't want a strap between her cheeks. I was completely stunned. Naturally, I smelled the crotch, and they definitely smelled like my wife. Why had she bought and worn thongs? Surely not for me, because I wasn't even there. Was my wife having an affair? Was I getting seconds yesterday when we had sex? I became emotional and had to sit down. There had to be an excuse. This was so unlike my wife. But she had been different this past year. What would I do? Confront Sandra? I decided to snoop a little and see if there was anything else. I looked through her closet but found nothing unusual. Then I looked in her chest of drawers and found nothing. Her suitcase was sitting just inside her closet, so I pulled it out, but it was locked. Why lock it after you unpack? Fortunately, it was a Samsonite, and all the keys are the same for the same type of suitcase. We had bought matching suitcases 2 years ago, so I found my key and unlocked Sandra's suitcase. I was speechless by what I found inside. There was a pair of Christian Louboutin shoes with 4-inch heels. I've known my wife forever, and she's never worn anything higher than 3 inches, and never would pay $600 for a pair of heels she only wore occasionally. There was a large garment-sized Ziploc bag inside with lingerie, and it was all racy more thongs, half-cup bras, stockings, and very sexy nightgowns. What the hell was going on during the conferences? I put everything back and relocked her suitcase. What was I going to do? I loved Sandra more than anything or anybody in the world. She was my rock. We shared and did everything together. I couldn't live without my wife. That night during dinner, I told Sandra I found something odd in the laundry. This piqued her interest, and she asked what. I said I'd show her. I got up, collected the thong, and returned to the table, placing the thong in the center. I found this rolled up in the leg of your dress pants. I've asked you for years to wear thongs, and you've always refused. Is there something you want to tell me? She thought for a second and finally replied, I bought them for you. Okay, if they're for me, why have you already worn them? She rarely got angry, but I could see her face getting red, and I realized she was about to lose it. You have never been jealous or questioned anything I have ever done, she snapped. I replied, you have never given me a reason to be jealous or question you. Sandra was nearly shouting, why are you questioning me now? I have never been unfaithful, not once. Just explain the thongs, then we'll drop it. Well, you have been after me for years to buy some, so I have. I wore a pair to see how they feel, okay? Did you buy anything else you want to share? No. With that, we dropped it. I realized my investigation needed to be bumped up a notch because Sandra had not come clean and had totally ignored mentioning the other items in her suitcase. After dinner, I went to work on my computer while Sandra went upstairs to shower. I checked the kitchen looking for her purse and cell phone, but she must have taken them with her. Her laptop was still on the table, so I took it to my computer room and locked the door. I checked her home email and found nothing unusual, then checked her work email, again finding nothing. I looked into the history and found a Yahoo account that was often used, but without a username and password, I was locked out. I had to check her cell phone. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of the shower running. Her purse was on the dresser, so I quickly grabbed her cell phone and unlocked it. Her text messages revealed nothing. I typed in Yahoo Mail in the browser bar, and Yahoo opened up. Her password and username had been saved, so I only had to click open. The guy's name was Eric, and he seemed to be a predator. He was the HR chief at a hospital about 2 states away. He wanted Sandra to dress sexy and be more open with him. From what I could gather, they had not had sex but had seriously made out. Sandra appeared reluctant but interested. I heard the shower turn off, so I quickly shut everything down and replaced her phone. I now had Eric's first name, knew where he worked, and what he did. I went to the hospital directory and within a few minutes had his full name. I paid $30 for an online person search and had his full history, including names of family members, phone numbers, email addresses, and his home address. One of my golfing friends is a lawyer with friends on the local police force. I called and asked if he could arrange to have the guy's name run through the police database. He called back minutes later and discovered the guy had been charged but not convicted of 3 counts of sexual harassment. Apparently, in all cases, the charges had been dropped. He was a serial predator. 3 charges against him could not all be wrong. Maybe he was innocent of 1, but not 3. I was determined to ruin the guy and ensure he couldn't or wouldn't have sex with Sandra. This was easier said than done. The next morning, I accessed Sandra's cell phone and found the username and number of characters in her password. Later, I pulled up Yahoo Mail on my computer and started searching for the password. We were both consistent in using passwords that meant something to us. I spent an hour before figuring it out. The password was the name of Sandra's first dog when she was a kid. She often talked about the dog, so I was familiar with the name. I was into Sandra's private email, and as long as I didn't open unread messages, she wouldn't know of my snooping. Apparently, Eric had been hitting on her since the first conference. He had taken it slowly, but at the last conference, he got to second base. I think he was hoping for a home run at the next conference. I printed out copies of all his emails. His emails were like love letters, and I had the feeling he was grooming her. Sandra's responses were typical and to the point. She didn't want to have an affair, and at the last conference, she had let things advance further than she was comfortable with. I started developing a plan for the next conference and needed enough evidence to hang him, but I also wanted to prevent them from having sex. I went to Best Buy and bought a mini-cam with a transmitter that worked over Wi-Fi. I only had to pair it with my tablet computer after downloading special software. Sandra spends considerable time in our bedroom each night, so that's where I placed the cam. The cam had an audio receiver so I could hear and see what was going on. That night after dinner, Sandra went upstairs while I relaxed in my computer room. I powered up the cam, and my tablet came alive with a view of Sandra in our bed. Sandra was relaxing on the bed, reading a novel. After an hour, her cell phone rang, and it was Eric. Luckily for me, Sandra put the conversation on speakerphone. They chatted about work, and Eric kept saying he was looking forward to the next conference so he could see the different lingerie Sandra had bought. Sandra didn't promise, but just said, "We'll see." The pig knew all the right things to say, and Sandra was soon rubbing between her legs. I needed to end this, so I made some noise going up the stairs and found Sandra reading her novel. I brushed my teeth and got into bed beside her. "I love you to the moon and back, and you know I have never even once looked at another woman. I would be crushed if I ever found you in the arms of another man. You know my feelings on infidelity. This is all I think about. I have never been unfaithful to you and have no intentions to do so. What brought this on? Why the sudden jealousy? Until I found that thong, I never questioned your loyalty or been jealous. However, now I'm confused. I want to believe you, but part of me thinks otherwise. I'm sorry, but I feel as if something is going on that you aren't sharing with me. I wish I had never bought the damn thing. Now the weeks passed, and I continued to watch the minicam. Eric called Sandra weekly, and they were making plans for the conference. So was I. The cam worked perfectly, so I decided to buy another one and sneak into Sandra's room to install the cam while she was in a meeting. I could then monitor her actions from a nearby room. I am not a voyeur, and certainly not the husband who gets turned on by seeing his wife in the arms of other men. My intention in setting the cam was to prevent Sandra from having sex, not to watch her and get off from it. I was determined not to be a cuckold. I am lucky in that what occurred happened in her room and not his. The week of the conference arrived, and this time it was in New Orleans, a party town that might affect my plans. I watched Sandra pack for 2 days and saw nothing out of the ordinary. However, when I took the trash out, I checked Sandra's car and noticed a separate bag in the trunk. I knew what was inside and figured she would swap out her clothes at the airport. Sandra left the next morning with a kiss and an "I love you." I followed her 3 hours later. At the hotel check-in, I explained that I was Sandra's husband and was meeting her. After showing ID, they gave me a key to her room. I knew she was in a meeting from 3:00 to 5:00, so I quickly went up to her room and set up my minicam with a view from the door to the bed. That operation to hide the cam in Sandra's room only took 10 minutes, so I again approached the check-in desk to find a different person working. I asked for a room on the same floor as Sandra, but a few doors away. I had to get as near as possible to be within range of the transmitter, so my excuse was to be near the elevator. Luck was on my side, as I was assigned a room 3 doors away. You know the saying about the best-laid plans of mice and men? Well, it's true. The problem with cams is getting the damn thing to communicate, first with a Wi-Fi signal, then with the receiver, which in my case was my tablet computer. I worked for hours trying to establish a link but was unable to make the connection. Wi-Fi in your own home is much easier than in a hotel. I could not get the transmitter in the cam to connect to the hotel's Wi-Fi. Maybe the problem was the cam, but I never got a connection. I felt like a duck out of water. I was in a room near Sandra but had no clue what she was doing. So I called her, and she answered right away. "Sandra, you never call this early. Are you okay?" "No, I'm not okay. I was just taking a nap and dreamed of a strange man making out with you. It was so real I had to call and hear your voice. You know you can trust me, thanks. I feel better already. I just needed to hear you. I miss you so much. I'm going to change and go out to dinner and will call you as soon as I return to my room. I promise I love you. Okay, speak to you in a couple of hours. I love you so much. Don't go flashing your boobs on Bourbon Street." She just laughed. I slipped into her room while she was gone and left a dozen red roses in a vase. I had placed a card so she would see it, and it simply said, "So you won't forget me." She called me straight away after returning to her room. I answered immediately and asked about dinner. She said it was good and enjoyed the company of a couple of other female HR chiefs. She thanked me for the roses, and I asked her to put her phone on video call so I could see them. Sandra was a little careless, and I could see her blouse undone. I asked her about it, and she said she was getting ready for bed. We finally said goodnight. How was I going to endure 2 more days of this? I knew the creep was with her at every opportunity. Had he already screwed her? Friday afternoon, when the conference ended, I was hiding in the hotel bar when they went up to her room. I gave them 45 minutes and could not wait a second longer before opening the door and entering her room. I walked in and saw that they were making out so heavily they were both oblivious to my presence. I took several photos and a short video with my cell phone. Finally, tired of the show, I grunted. Sandra immediately became aware of my presence, pushed Eric from her, and tried to sort out her clothes. I flat out told him to get the hell out of the room before I beat him up. He wasn't threatened by me, but feeling humiliated, he left. "Darling wife, would you like to tell me what exactly is going on?" Oh, Jack, I'm so sorry I got into this mess. I've been so confused. I love you, but I crave the attention I get from Eric. What is his name and how long has this been going on? Eric Parker. I started talking to him at the first conference, and our conversations have continued at every conference since. Okay, except you no longer just talk. You've been kissing and letting him touch you. How far has it gone? We have started kissing, and I have allowed him to fondle me. I find it hard to believe that is all that's happened. Are you aware that the next step will be full sex? I mean, you were undressed and he was fondling you when I entered the room. I didn't intend to allow it to go that far. Doesn't kissing and fondling turn you on? How will you be able to resist him going further if he hasn't already? I bet you are wet as a drowned rat now. Sandra turned around on the bed and started crying. Then she asked if I would stay the weekend with her. She didn't trust herself to be alone with the a-hole. She laid there until she drifted off to sleep, and I watched her for an hour before waking her. Her eyes were red and swollen. I was extremely angry and hurt, but I told her, let's dress up, go out to dinner and dancing. Let's have a good time and try to put this mess behind us. If you want me to stay with you, I will. That man won't get near you again. She had nothing but sexy clothes to wear, obviously all newly purchased. She was embarrassed as I watched her dress in her half-bra, followed by thong and thigh-high stockings. Then she put on a figure-hugging black dress with heels. I told her I knew she had only brought sexy clothes, and I was hurt because she wore clothing for Eric that she wouldn't wear for me. She apologized and said, I will wear whatever you ask in the future. I wondered what the future would hold. Dinner was good, in fact. I ate too much and felt like a slug afterward. We went back to the hotel bar. The dance floor was crowded and Sandra wanted to dance. Because of my exercise program, I was in much better shape and could dance without getting tired. We really had a good time. I excused myself to go to the bathroom. When I returned, Sandra was not at our table. I found her on the dance floor in Eric's arms. I was having none of this, so I interrupted them and told him to keep his hands off my wife, not just now, but also in the future. I added that he was lucky I didn't trash him that afternoon. Sandra tried to smooth things over, and I just told her to be quiet. Eric was about 6 inches taller than me and must have weighed at least 50 pounds more. He was not intimidated by me. He just laughed and asked how a chicken like me could back up that threat. Like a bully, he took the first punch and caught me off guard. I was on my back and momentarily saw stars. The side of my face felt like it was on fire. I finally struggled to my feet and faced him. Despite such a mismatch in sizes, he rushed me and I sidestepped and tripped him. He came at me like a madman and I landed 4 solid punches as I danced around him. My gym training was paying off. His pride was hurt, but he kept coming and I kept punching. Finally, he slowed down and left himself open, so I kicked him in the balls. Then I connected with a left-right combination that put him on the floor. For good measure, I kicked him in the balls again. That felt good. He said, "Enough." He was lying in the fetal position, holding his balls, obviously in pain. I looked down at him and said, "Leave my wife alone or I won't be so kind next time." I backed away looking for Sandra and saw her rushing to Eric's side. That proved her loyalty and who she wanted to be with, so I paid the bill and left. The bartender saw everything and said he would smooth it with the police since the other guy threw the first punch. I left, saying I didn't want to press charges. However, in hindsight, maybe I should have. I didn't see Sandra again that night as I spent the night in my old room. I don't know if she spent the night in her room or not. The next morning, after removing the cam, I checked out and flew home. The next day, Sandra was due to arrive back from New Orleans. I was in the kitchen drinking coffee with my suitcases packed when she arrived. "Jack, why did you leave Friday night?" "Sandra, why should I stay? I didn't see us having much of a marriage left." "You decided who you wanted to be with, and it wasn't me." "I'm sorry, but you hurt Eric, and I was concerned for his injuries." "Have you forgotten who threw the first punch?" "Look at my eye. Does it look normal to you?" My eye was totally black and still swollen. I could barely see. "I know you spent Friday night with that a-hole and most likely all day Saturday and that night too. You must be well drilled by now. I didn't have sex with him. I'm tired of your lies. I'm leaving, and you will hear from my lawyer this week. We had 28 years of happiness, and now you've thrown it away for a weekend with some worthless piece of shit. Are you aware that he had been charged by the police 3 times for sexual harassment? Jack, no, I didn't know that. You have lied and deceived me for the past several months. I cannot tell you how much you have hurt me. I was onto your little game almost from the beginning. I'm so ashamed. I beg your forgiveness. So, Sandra, did you screw Eric after I left? No, he pressured me terribly, but I didn't. How can you prove it? I can't. You will just have to take my word for it. So you're saying I can believe what you say and trust you? Why should I? I'm telling the truth. I pulled up her skirt and discovered she wasn't wearing panties. What do you say to that, and where are your panties? I assumed that was from this morning just before you left. I'm sorry, it was only one time. Please believe me. After the beating you gave him, he couldn't get out of bed until this morning. He came to my room just as I was leaving for the airport and demanded we have sex. He bullied me until I finally consented. I picked up my suitcases and said, "My lawyer will be in touch. Be prepared to be destroyed." And I left. She had betrayed me despite all my efforts to save her. She had no intentions of staying faithful to me. That weekend she would have cheated regardless of what I had done. If not that weekend, certainly the next time. I was finished. I checked into the Hilton and realized I needed to speak to my children and let them know what was going on. Using the conference call function on my phone, I talked to them and explained my plans for a divorce from their mom. They were both shattered that their mom would do such a thing. We were all crying when we hung up. Within minutes, Sandra was calling, and now I was the a-hole. How could you tell our children and turn them against me? I said, "Wait a minute, are you now saying I betrayed you, hid a relationship from you for months, and then had sex with a predator? I'm confused. I thought you were the one who deceived me and then cheated." Sandra just hung up the phone. That night in the hotel, I sent several screenshots to Eric's wife. The screenshots showed him in all the photos, first with him kissing Sandra, then with her topless in bed, and finally, several with Eric. I might be an angry husband, but I wanted my pound of flesh, and someone else should share my pain. The next morning, I called my lawyer, who referred me to an excellent divorce lawyer. I went to the bank and split the money $5,050, including my severance pay and $401K. That was more than she deserved. I canceled all the credit cards and got one in just my name. Sandra's cell phone belonged to the hospital. I saw the divorce lawyer that afternoon and instructed him to go for the jugular. I was tired of being the nice guy. He was instructed to serve Sandra at his earliest convenience. I finally thought I was thinking rationally and called the hospital CEO, whose office was in Dallas. He is a busy man, but I managed to beg 5 minutes of his time. I explained how Eric Parker had seduced my wife at the HR conferences and had copies of all the emails to back up my story. I asked why the hospital would hire an administrator who had been charged but not convicted of several cases of sexual harassment. Surely anyone having more than one charge against them should raise red flags. Didn't they do background investigations? He was stunned and didn't have an answer but promised he would investigate. I asked for his fax number so I could send a copy of the emails. I told him I would also email further photographic evidence if he wanted it. Finally, he wanted to know what I wanted. I wanted Parker fired. I told him that my wife had been hunted down and seduced by a sexual predator and she shouldn't be disciplined because of this mess. There was no reason for Sandra to lose her job. That evening, Sandra called me. She had settled down. "Jack, why did you send those photos? Are you in trouble because I sent photos to Eric's wife?" "Not yet, but I may be later on. Apparently, she shared them with the hospital. You do realize everything will come out in the divorce court. I am charging you with adultery, and this type of divorce can get very messy. The photos plus all the details will come out in court. Eric's wife has left him, and he was fired today. That is one of the reasons I sent the photos. Do you know he has 3 kids still living at home? Have you forgotten we have 2 kids of our own? You seem more concerned about Eric and his troubles than about ours. Why is that? Have you forgotten your actions have broken up our marriage? Of course, I'm concerned about us, but Eric and his family are younger, and I feel sorry for them. So why did you screw him if he's married with 3 kids? Looks to me like you may have broken up 2 marriages. Couldn't you see that he was just a sexual predator? I simply hung up the phone. I didn't hear from Sandra for the remainder of the week, but I found out she had been served. I put a deposit on an apartment that I could afford and finally got out of that expensive hotel. Now I was back to cleaning again, but actually, I did very little cleaning. I really didn't care. With my time my own, I hit the gym twice a day and boxed in the afternoon. I was getting hit less while my punches were finding their targets. My body was becoming toned, and I was developing some serious abs. I was on a strict diet that included no alcohol and was finally at my goal weight. The gym threw a party for me and we all celebrated with carrot juice. The weeks passed, and through the grapevine I discovered that Sandra was about to lose her job because of the affair. There is little tolerance for anyone in her position to play around, especially with another employee. I didn't really care because, since I was unemployed, I didn't think the court would force me to pay alimony. I made a note to check with my lawyer. We had been separated for about 3 months when she called and asked if we could talk. I agreed, and we planned to meet at a local CAF-GC the following day. Sandra looked good, maybe a little thinner, and I complimented her weight loss. She thanked me, but never said a word about my weight loss. Here I was, standing in tight-fitting clothes with bulging muscles. I had lost 6 inches in the waist and nearly 50 pounds in weight, and she was clueless. She started crying and telling me she had lost her job and had no job prospects. I told her to move out of the house so we could sell it, and reminded her that she had a lot of money in the bank, maybe not enough to retire on, but enough to live on for several years. I knew she was hinting for me to come home, but I never took the bait. For now, I was happy doing what I was doing. Then she started talking about Eric again. He too had lost his job as well as his family. I said, "Good. Now he can screw you whenever you want, and you won't have to hide what you were doing. I haven't seen him since that last conference and have no plans to. I understand what you told me about him, and now I just wish I had never met him. I have somewhere I need to be, and I didn't come here to talk about Eric. What do you want? Please come back home. I don't trust you anymore. I don't think I can live with you again. You deceived and lied to me so much that I am finished. You care more about Eric and his family than about us and our family. I put my family first, but apparently you don't. When you want to talk and won't mention Eric, let me know. I do not want to hear about the guy you screwed." I got up angrily and left. The divorce was finalized, and almost a year passed. Because of our assets, cash in the bank, and because we were both unemployed, I didn't have to pay alimony. My lease on my apartment was coming to an end, and I needed to find somewhere to live, as I didn't want to stay there. I had not heard from Sandra, although my children kept in touch with her. They kept me informed concerning how she was doing, which apparently wasn't too well. I asked if she was seeing anyone, and they replied no, as she was too hurt and upset. Besides, she was still in love with me. However, I was pleased to hear that she was seeing a counselor. During my search for a place to live, I found a large 100-year-old fixer-upper on the edge of town, which in a few years would be in a ritzy neighborhood. The house had been on the market unsold for 2 years. Although I knew nothing about working with wood and renovating old houses, I put a low bid on the house, and to my astonishment, my bid was accepted. I had a thorough professional inspection done, which highlighted what needed to be accomplished or replaced. I had 5 pages of work. With a house that needed so much work, I was only able to go to the gym once a day. However, I was no longer trying to lose weight, just maintain my current weight. I just threw myself into working on the old house. I worked on the house from the time I got up until I went to the gym in the evening. I was sleeping better than ever. My body stayed sore all the time, but I was in good condition. Working on the house was using different muscle groups, so my body became even more toned and muscular. The roof needed to be replaced, and I had it done professionally, as it was too big an undertaking for me. The same with the electric wiring and plumbing. I also had a new air conditioning system with ductwork installed. Those jobs have to be done by professionals, and I was happy to pay what they charged. The downside to all this was that I had overspent my budget. so further renovations had to be done as I could afford them. I realized I needed help but couldn't afford to pay very much, which ruled out long-term professional help. So I placed an ad in the local paper. Responses were few and far between, a couple of responses from men in their 70s and one from a high school student. A few days later, I was working outside. It was very hot, and I was wearing baggy clothes and a hat when a car pulled up, and Sandra got out. "Hello, Sandra, how have you been?" "Well, not so good. You know, I lost my job. In fact, I'm having problems finding work." "Yes, someone did tell me you had lost your job, but you have enough cash and investments to live a long time. You don't really need to work. I would like to volunteer to help you renovate the house." At one time, we worked really well together as a team. We did everything together. I wondered how she found out, then realized our children must have told her. "Yes, I remember, but that was before you took over the job as chief of HR. After that, you became a changed woman and had little regard for our marriage. I have apologized 1,000 times. I really don't want us to get upset and argue. I didn't come here for that. I would like to work with you on the house and don't really care about the pay, whatever you can afford. I do need help and haven't been able to find anyone, so I accept your offer. However, we are divorced, and I have no intentions of taking you back. I understand and accept whatever terms you think fair. Okay, be here at 7:00 in the morning and wear old clothes." A year and a half had passed since we last spent time with each other, so I was nervous. Deep down, I felt like she was trying to get back in my good graces. However, my hurt, although serious at one time, had largely disappeared. Although I was determined to stay single, we had always been a good team when working together. But I needed help, so even though I was reluctant to work with Sandra, I agreed. Sandra actually showed up at 6:30 the next morning, dressed for work. I was shaving when she arrived, so I just shouted down to help herself to coffee. I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt when I entered the kitchen. Sandra took one look at me and dropped her cup of coffee. "Jack, what happened to you? I have never seen you looking so buff. And when did you start shaving your head?" "I started working out when I retired, but you never took the time to notice. In all, I have lost 65 pounds and 6 inches in the waist. I've been lifting weights and now actually have a six-pack." I lifted my shirt to show her. "Oh my God, Jack, how could I have been so blind not to have noticed? Have you been learning how to fight too?" "Yes, I have been boxing since I retired too. If you had taken the time, you would have seen bruises on my body and face when we were still together. I've often wondered how you took on Eric, especially after he laid you out on the floor. You were able to come back and beat him fair and square. I've never seen you lift a finger against anyone, and I thought that was so out of character for you. Well, I thought I was fighting for my woman, the love of my life. I had luck on my side because he was pretty slow. I've improved a fair bit since then. He wouldn't stand a chance with me now. I feel so stupid. I was totally blinded when I held the top HR job. I thought everyone was below me, including you. So I shut out everything and everyone that meant something to me. I thought you were a different person when you were promoted. You were also wrapped up with someone else. So even though we were married and living together, you never actually saw or listened to me. I'm sorry I was so selfish. I've been going to a counselor and hope you will be able to see that I have changed." We cleaned the spilled coffee and sat down to talk about the house and what work was required. She talked about always wanting a house like this, but we never had the time, money, or skills to renovate one. I replied that I still question my skill level and if I had the money. Renovating an old house is terribly expensive. We both agreed the house would be wonderful when finished. Sandra saw things differently from me, so having her input was welcome, although I still questioned how we would work together. Just so you know up front, as far as I am concerned, this is just a job, and I will make no promises when the work is finished. We are divorced, and I aim to stay that way. I understand. I just want something to keep me busy. I can get by without pay, but I want to feel useful. We've always worked well together, and this is really important to me. I would like to see your renovation to the end. I will have no expectations when the job is finished, I promise. Okay? We are going to start by painting the outside walls and windows. Then we will start inside. But before we do anything, the outside walls have to be prepped. Sandra was much more agile on the ladder than me, so I turned over the higher areas to her, and she did a wonderful job. She could climb up and down that ladder like a monkey. She was also a much quicker painter than me. We spent 10 days painting the outside of the house. The days were hot, and I usually painted in just my cargo shorts. I caught Sandra staring at me several times. I think she saw a different person, but I wasn't sure if she liked what she saw or not. Sandra started wearing less too. Gone were work clothes replaced by gym shorts and halters. She was as beautiful as ever. Our working relationship grew a little each day. We laughed and shared good memories from the past. Sandra packed a picnic lunch each day for both of us, and we would sit under the big oak tree and share our food. I hate to use the word romantic, but our lunches were, and I started looking forward to them. We worked long days from 6:00 a.m. till 6:00 p.m., only stopping for lunch or a cup of coffee. With two of us working, we accomplished so much more, not to mention that Sandra worked quicker. We were a good team. Sandra started volunteering to stop a few minutes early to make dinner before she went home. The food was delicious, and naturally I had to ask her to stay for dinner. This became a regular thing for us. I did not want to admit that we were getting closer as a couple. We never argued, had cross words, or spoke of her past indiscretion. I had mixed feelings about Sandra. I enjoyed her company. She was an awesome worker. True to her word, she never mentioned the pig she screwed, nor did she ever suggest us getting back together. We just enjoyed each other's company. We had been trying to sell our house that we had shared for so long, and finally, it sold after a year and a half on the market. We had 30 days to close, so we had to empty the contents. Also, Sandra had to find a new place to live because she was still living in the family home. Sandra suggested that since the furniture was half mine, I should buy out her share and furnish the old house with our furniture. I thought that was a good idea, as all of our antique furniture would fit perfectly in the 100-year-old house. So that is what we did. We painted and decorated like crazy for 2 weeks, then hired a moving firm to deliver the furniture. Sandra's things were packed and stored in my garage. The house still required a tremendous amount of work, and the interior rooms were not completely finished. But we moved the furniture in anyway. We both admitted the house felt like a home, and were both pleased with our efforts. Sandra, go home, shower, put on some fancy clothes, and we will go out to eat to celebrate. She thought for a moment and then asked, "Do you mean go out as in a date?" "Yes. Okay, I will pick you up in an hour." We both thought and then realized our old house no longer had furniture or clothing, as everything had been packed. Sandra had intended to check into a cheap hotel until she could find an apartment. "Let's get your suitcases out of the car and you can stay in the guest bedroom until you can sort out a place to stay. You can use the shower in the hall opposite your bedroom." I'm not sure what clothes she had in her suitcases, but when she came downstairs she was dazzling. Not provocative, but definitely sexy and classy. "You look wonderful. I had forgotten how well you clean up." "Thanks. I don't have a lot of clothes to choose from, as I had not expected to be going out to dinner." We shared a bottle of wine during dinner, and although we both ate, I think we were too nervous to appreciate the good food. There was a band playing in the bar, so after we finished eating, we found a table in the bar area. The band was playing golden oldies, which were perfect for dancing, and I soon found Sandra in my arms. She commented on how hard my body was. I asked if it was a good thing or a bad thing. "Oh, it's good, believe me." We returned to our table, and I excused myself to use the bathroom. I half expected to find Sandra dancing when I returned, but she was still at the table. I asked her if anyone had asked her to dance, and she just replied a couple of men had approached her, but she told them she was waiting for me. Even after I returned, men were asking Sandra to dance, and she always had the same reply that she was saving her dances for me. I got up to refill our drinks, and a woman at the bar started flirting with me. I talked to her a minute too long. Sandra approached the lady and said, "Honey, this man is mine. Go put your hooks in someone else." On the way back to the house, Sandra thanked me for a wonderful evening and apologized for ruining it. You were acting like we are a couple again. I wanted to show my appreciation and take you out to eat, and you assumed we were together again. I am not sure what to make of the situation. We didn't say much for the remainder of the night, but the next morning she got up and went looking for an apartment. For the first time in weeks, I was working on my own, and I discovered I missed my partner. Sandra came back later that afternoon looking dejected. She had not found an acceptable apartment and was going to check into a cheap hotel with weekly rates. Sandra, I've spent the day thinking. I would like you to continue to sleep in the spare bedroom. We can bring all of your things in tomorrow and unpack them. This is a huge step for me, so please don't make any assumptions and just give us some space. I know you aren't seeing anyone, but if you do, I ask that you not bring a man into this house. I will take you up on your offer. I had no luck today and didn't realize how hard it would be trying to find an apartment. I understand about the space and totally agree. As far as bringing anyone back to the house, I have neither dated nor had sex with anyone since I cheated on you at that last conference. I have undergone months of counseling since then, and I am not the same person I was then. I have realized since the first day you started working with me that you've changed. You are more like the Sandra I was married to before you got that promotion. I like the current you much better. She agreed to do the shopping, cooking, and laundry in lieu of rent. That was an even trade in my book. We continued to work on the house. If a room that needed work contained furniture, we moved the furniture to another room. We retiled the bathrooms and refinished the hardwood floors. We weren't working quickly, but were meticulous. I continued to go to the gym in the evening. My trainers were impressed with my boxing and encouraged me to enter an amateur boxing competition that was approaching. Because of my age, I would be boxing in my age group, not by weight. I have never done any competitive sports at all and was more than nervous. The match was scheduled during the day, so Sandra and I took the day off. Sandra was more nervous than me and wouldn't stop fidgeting. My trainer became my manager and assisted in my corner. My first opponent, although in the same age group, was larger than me but not as agile. The match was only 3 rounds, and I took a beating in the first 2 before laying out my opponent in the third. He didn't have the stamina to do 3 rounds, and I made him suffer for it. I was exhausted when declared the winner, but I was still standing while my opponent was on the floor being treated. I was given a 2-day break before my next opponent. He was a better boxer and gave as good as he got, and we were both standing at the end. The judges ruled in my favor by 1 point. After another 2-day break, I was back, this time for the championship title. My opponent had been a semi-pro boxer in his teens, but then dropped out and only returned to boxing recently. He was a year older than me and in great shape, but proved to be a worthy adversary. I was on the floor during the first round, then I had him on the floor during the second round. In the third and last round, we stood in the middle of the ring and just duked it out, neither of us giving or taking an inch. After a full 60 seconds of this, he dropped his right hand, giving me an open target, and I connected, sending him to the floor. He was out cold. I had won. The crowd erupted, cheering and shouting. Suddenly, Sandra was in the ring, hugging me and wouldn't let go. She had been very frightened for me to even take part, and now she was the proudest woman in the arena, my biggest supporter. I scanned the audience and realized that many of the cheering crowd were our friends and relatives. I had not told anyone of the competition, so she must have gotten the word out. Even our children were ringside. My match was the last in the competition, so the awards followed. I was crowned champion for my age group and received a large trophy. Sandra immediately congratulated me with a big hug and kiss. She had, without my knowledge, arranged a party afterward at one of the larger restaurants. This was the first time since our split that we were both together in the company of our children and their families. There was no awkwardness at all. There were many friends I had not seen because they just dropped off the radar after the divorce, but everyone congratulated me and showered me with compliments. Most remembered me as a pudgy fat guy. None recognized me as I entered the ring, except, of course, my ex-wife. We continued the renovation, and it was finally together. We were still sleeping in separate bedrooms and, of course, not having sex, but otherwise we were a couple. We went everywhere together and shared everything. Sandra even started going to the gym with me in the evening. We knew a day was coming when I would be forced to deal with our state of affairs, but neither of us talked about it. The situation lingered on my mind. When Sandra's bathroom was being worked on, she began to use my bathroom off the master bedroom. I forgot she was showering one day and entered the bathroom. I had forgotten how perfect her body was, even at the age of 51. I had purposely built a large shower with many shower heads, and it was big enough for 3 or 4 people. It took all my willpower not to crawl in with her. Seeing her with no clothes on really got my heart racing, but I didn't know what to do. I knew she would have me back in a heartbeat if I asked her, and she would share my bed even quicker. I knew the situation was completely in my hands, and I was very tempted. Sandra, true to her word, never tried to reconcile with me. I needed to talk to my children who knew our situation, so I set up a conference call. I explained my feelings and asked what I should do concerning their mother. My daughter asked me to remember the day Mom went looking for an apartment and how lost I was. I remembered only too well. My daughter then said, "If you push Mom away now, how will you feel?" I said empty and lost because by now I had totally gotten used to her being around. We were having a great time together, so why kick her out? So that was my answer. It had been right in front of me all along. We had become great friends, but without benefits, and I needed the benefits. That night I took Sandra out to one of the better restaurants in town. We shared a bottle of our favorite wine. "Sandra, are you happy?" She looked at me for a moment, then replied, "Yes, there are things that are missing, but yes, I am very happy. What is missing that would make your life complete?" Sandra looked at me like she really didn't want to answer. I'm really not comfortable answering, but since you have asked, I miss the intimacy that we used to share. I miss the smell of your body. I miss sleeping in the same bed as you. I miss the sex we used to have. Do you really want me to continue? Do you think we can go back to where we used to be? Jack, that is impossible, as we both have changed. Neither of us are the same person we were before our divorce. I think we have both grown, and speaking for myself, I feel like a different person. I've not only regained the values I somehow lost, but found a few new ones. I would like to get past my mistakes. Would you consider moving back into my bedroom? Let's take it slow, and maybe in time we can get back to where we used to be. I did not say a word and just walked out. Sandra and I reconciled, but we never remarried. I told her that I would never get married again and that our relationship needed to start afresh like we never met before. Only then could I ever get over what she did to me. We are now a couple in every sense of the word and are in love. We continued to renovate the old house till it met our satisfaction, and now we are extremely proud of it. Sandra and I did most of the work ourselves, having never done anything like this before. Once the house was finished, we started landscaping the yard. I still go to the gym and box, although I don't plan on entering any more competitions. Neither of us plans to work again, but live on my pension and our investments. We aren't rich or even comfortable, but we do okay. You don't need a lot of money if you are in love. Thanks for watching this intense story of betrayal and reconciliation. Do you think Jack made the right choice by taking Sandra back, or should he have moved on? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this.